So, Mark, thanks for joining us, by the way.
Absolutely.
So,
You're welcome.
what kind of job do you have where I can call you and 10 minutes later, you can be over here to do a podcast?
I am an engineer at Steelcase, working from home, but that's about to end, and just took an early lunch so I could do it.
Are you disappointed that the work from home is ending?
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
I miss talking to people. I don't miss the drive because it's near the airport in Grand Rapids, and yeah, it goes both ways. It's been 2 years since
Yeah.
I worked
Wow.
from home since COVID started.
It's hard. It's hard to It's hard to think back that it was 2 years ago when this whole thing started.
That's nuts, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Somebody asked me about how we got into this, and
Mm-hmm.
I had to think back, and I'm like, crap, where'd it start? Like, holy cow, it was 2 years ago already, right? And so, no, it's crazy. But, all right.
Interesting
You
stuff.
ready to kick
Yep.
us off, Zachary?
Let's kick us off.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome back to episode 19 of the CatchMark SportsNet podcast. I'm your host, Zach Zweigle, joined here by my co-host, Scott DeCamp, across from me.
What's up?
Scott DeVamp. My fault.
I got 11 hours of sleep Saturday night.
You're not a
way.
vamp
Swear to
anymore.
God.
11?
Swear to God. Not consecutive, but I woke up a couple times, but I just stayed in bed, just kept sleeping. I just needed it, I guess.
You got to be like Superman right now. I don't even know that your body knows how to react to that.
It's
Usually getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, that's a little different
That's
for me.
nuts.
very true.
That's crazy.
And joined next to him, our fearless leader,
Old
Brent
gray
Raeth,
beard.
Old
gray beard.
Faithful. All right, today we have a special guest, Mr. Mark Atchison. He had plenty of time to plan for this podcast, weeks, months, maybe even, and he's making his debut today. So welcome, Mark. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. I even had to do my hair.
Mark
There you
joined Clan Graybeard too, just for the record.
That's true. That's true. You guys kind of look alike.
Hey, Mark's much better looking.
I thought you were looking pretty good the other day.
Well, I'm gonna tell Kara she's gonna be worried, Mark.
I saw Brent's doppelganger again,
Oh my gosh, Scott, will you stop with that?
Joe Grimm.
You do like taking photos of
We
Joe.
need to find a way.
Come on, let's not make this weird now, Zach. Come on. It's already weird enough. You know what
I
I'm
don't know.
saying?
You got to think for Brent, I think, and Joe.
Does that guy, like, when you're walking around, following him around at sporting events and taking random pictures, does he get any weirded out by it at all?
That's why they create a zoom lens from a long ways away. You can be a creeper and
Pointed
take
at
them
the
from a
crowd.
ways away.
Zoom.
Nah, you might just want to stop right now. Oh my goodness.
Ugh,
Well, hey,
brother.
I got to mention one thing. I just made a post on Facebook. We are in our new, I won't call it fancy, but our new podcast studio. And the last thing we need is a better table, which is on its way. But supply and demand, it won't be here till March. So we're going to cram in here. And every time we bump the table, you might see the cameras move just because it's a bit of a janky setup till then. So
If people could see our network of cables running around on the table right now.
yeah, it's good. It looks good, Scott. That's the way it's supposed to be.
That's true.
So
They can't though. They can't see it.
No,
That's the
You
beauty
don't
of
need
it.
to see it.
Yeah, exactly. At least we're out of the we don't suck
Well, I
up
mean,
a
I-
conference room for time for.
Yep.
Yeah. Just don't dominate the conference room. But so what do you got for us today, Zach?
Oh, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Starting with where I spent my Saturday, which was at Team States Wrestling Team States down in Kalamazoo at Wings Event Center. Hart made it to the quarterfinals on the first day, and I was not down there for that. I was still here, but they ended up losing. Tough match. They have a couple really talented kids, but there's a lot of talented teams that go down and fight at the Team States down there. So credit to the Pirates. They had a really good season. We did a feature this Sunday, or Scott did a feature on Mason Cantu, who's headed to the University of Indianapolis, isn't it?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, super talented wrestler. So it was kind of cool to see the Pirates down there on Friday. And then on Saturday, I went down there and watched Whitehall, who was the number 2 seed in Division II, and they ended up falling to Goodrich, ending their season. But great time.
Anybody
watching
go with
those
you?
guys. My old man went with me, which is really nice.
Ah, Warren Z went, huh?
Yeah, yep. He wanted to watch the Vikings. I think this is as good a chance as they've had to kind of win, or potentially win a state title. So he wanted to head down there, and they just fell short. A lot of those teams are kind of crazy. One thing that I noticed down there, and I guess I hadn't seen, was the amount of fans that those wrestling schools have. Those big
It's pretty
wrestling
crazy.
schools.
Yeah.
It really is. It's louder than any environment I've seen.
Yeah, they're
high school
super
sports-wise.
passionate. Between them and the cheer parents and supporters, those are two of the more passionate fan bases you're going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wrestled at the same time, Dundee and Lowell wrestling. They weren't wrestling each other; they were just kind of down the line.
How did they lay the stadium out for that?
So there was 4 mats in a row, like lined up.
Yeah.
It's like a hockey arena.
Yeah.
Like the
No,
Gateway
I've been in
Split.
there before. Yep.
And so it's actually kind of cool. It's big stadium, but it's not huge. Small enough to where you can fill it, kind of.
Yeah.
And the environment was just nuts.
About the size of the LC, right?
Yeah,
Maybe a little
that's
bit.
exactly a good,
Yeah.
a good example or a good comparison. But just super cool, super loud, and man, those schools, Lowell and Dundee specifically, were just nuts, just crazy to watch.
So Mark, you wrestled in school, right?
I did.
What weight class did you wrestle?
What year?
It's supposed to be a trick question.
Well, because I'm obviously a little bit larger now, but when I was a freshman, I wrestled 98 pounds.
Are you serious?
The lightest weight you
Holy
could
cow.
wrestle. with.
That is nuts. I
Now-
would not have guessed that. Like,
Well, I was an October birthday,
yeah,
and back then, a lot of them, those guys still went early
yep,
to school rather than late.
yep,
Like Randy Lindquist, I graduated with him. He's a year older than me.
yeah. I'm in the same boat actually.
So I did grow late, actually my senior year, and then in the military, I grew 3 or 4 inches after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
Crazy.
So I wrestled 98 my first year, yes. But I will say that I never heard anybody cheering or when you're wrestling is the most intense thing I've ever done.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
it's every muscle in your body straining against every muscle in someone else's body. And you just don't hear, plus you have the headset on and all that. So it's kind of funny when you say how loud everybody is.
Yeah.
On the mat, you don't hear.
right.
It's got to
thing.
feel like an eternity out there too. When
Yeah.
you're-
Awful.
So-
2 minutes feels like 2 years.
Yeah,
I went into overtime once in a tournament, and I was upset. I would have rather just been done. Like I'll take the loss. I just don't want to do it.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you do? Like, I mean, a lot of these you wrestle multiple times in a day. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, do you recover from that pretty fast? I never wrestled, so
I mean, I think those guys are in excellent shape. I've never wrestled, so maybe Mark can shed some insight on
Yeah.
this. But I mean, I think that's being in shape is more important in wrestling than almost any other sport.
and then just the mental toughness. I mean,
for sure,
because there's nowhere to hide out there either.
right?
yeah.
There is nowhere to hide. That is true. And it depended on the tournament, to answer your question. So, and where like if you would get in the losers bracket but then started winning, sometimes you'd have to wrestle pretty quick
Right.
that next time because they would kind of get through those losers brackets up to what would be the like the 3rd and 4th place match. And I remember sometimes wrestling twice like within an hour, and that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah,
But
it's nuts.
yes, it's something.
Crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
Do we have our potential candidate to wrestle Ira? I've been trying to line that up for weeks now.
You know, I don't think Ira's going to do it right now. Not that he has any risk of getting hurt, but maybe after the state finals.
Okay.
I don't know what Jesse's thinking. He's
No, I was talking about Mark. Not Jesse.
Mark.
I feel like I could run away from him for longer than some of the like I saw he pinned
Mark,
in the match that they just lost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He pinned this guy, and how fast was it?
yeah. 17 seconds.
Yeah, I could run. I think I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably get away for 17 seconds.
I don't know if you saw the video of Ira at the GMAAs.
I have
That's
not.
what I'm imagining once he caught
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
But I think I could still go 17 seconds.
He looked
yeah. You could probably evade for
grizzly bear.
17.
This kid tried to get away, and he looked like a grizzly bear. And he got him, and he dragged him back onto the mat.
Scary
It's
stuff,
like,
man.
He's no joke. He is definitely no joke.
We're talking about how long it feels, while you're wrestling, and Ira never wrestles more than 30 seconds, man. He's just
I was actually reading something on wrestling and about tactics, and like like Mark said, like a guy like that that's used to pinning people quickly, your strategy might be to actually try to tire them out, make the match last as long as you possibly could.
Yeah.
And they had all kinds of strategies against different types of wrestlers. It was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
My dad had the best strategy for me. Districts my freshman year, I had to wrestle the kid that, of course, was going to win state. He did win state from Hart, and he told me when we shook hands to raise my hand really quick so he could take a picture, making it look like I won.
That's good. I like that.
That is pretty good.
I made it through one period, I think, with him, but yeah, he was really good.
So, Mark, what was your record overall?
I wasn't very good. I was a little below 500, but I started to kind of lose my desire to do it by my junior year.
Yeah.
And by my senior year, I don't even know why I wrestled my senior year. I ended up really liking track a lot more than wrestling.
Right.
But my two brothers wrestled older than me, so I went ahead and did it too. And I didn't wrestle before high school, which is a big deal.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, wrestling's like I think about the Felt boys from Shelby.
Yeah.
They were wrestling when they were 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that.
Yeah,
So you definitely fall behind.
And these kids now, they travel everywhere just to get training, just to get that extra training. Like I know that Ira and his brother Wyatt, they'll go a couple hours, and they'll even go out of state and even across the country at times to find competition and compete in national events and stuff.
For sure.
I feel like baseball's a little like that too.
Oh yeah.
They travel.
Well, not travel, but I mean like the skills thing. I think
Yeah.
like, if you try to sometimes if you try to jump into it like too quickly, like you didn't play your whole life and you like football, you could return a kid.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Be okay, right?
That's true.
Like
I think golf's like that too.
golf is like that as well. Yeah.
Well,
It's tough to pick up right away. So.
We'll find that out this year.
Oh yeah.
My youngest is going to play baseball for the first time ever.
There you go.
The old bullfrog.
Yep.
Oh man.
It's good to try things out, though.
So Mark's youngest, Jeremiah, is probably one of my favorite kids I've ever coached. That kid he's a hoot. Like,
Is he?
He's a
oh my
nut.
gosh. He probably had one of his best games Saturday too. I was really both games actually. He played really well. Rebounding machine. Some of the other parents didn't appreciate him jumping over the top of people, but like I told him, I said, "Hey man, I want aggressiveness. We can dial it back from there." And he did great. So
That's good.
Yeah, I feel like I need to mention one more thing on wrestling before we let that go. I'll be heading to Detroit this Saturday to cover we have 28 individuals, I want to say. I'd have to look at that number from West Michigan Conference.
Yeah,
wow. That's
and that includes the girls too, because Montague's got a nice contingent heading down to. They're doing girls and boys at Ford Field at the same time now.
So I mean, is there another conference in this? I mean, is the West Michigan Conference for wrestling like they are for football? In a sense, like a small school conference. It's
pretty solid because you got Whitehall and Hart. You know, Shelby has had its moments.
Yep.
You know, those are kind of the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, but then you get other schools that sprinkle them in too, right?
So it's pretty solid wrestling conference, I'd say overall. Sure. But like Zach and I were talking, there's just levels. When you look at wrestling, if you look at the Lowells and Dundees, it's just Whitehall's great. They really are. But then you look at the Lowells and the Dundees, and it's just another level.
Yeah. I was surprised this year when we were talking about Oak Ridge not having a program and then standing it up. Like as big a school as they are and as big in football as they are, I would have just thought that they had, they would be bigger in wrestling in a sense. But
yeah, it's been like 40 years, I think, something like that since they'd had a team.
Well, I
think
I think a lot of that has to do with the youth programs, like Mark just mentioned. Like when you get kids started young and that kind of thing, then they want to wrestle in high school and so on. So
I think Chris Maddox and Montague's doing a great job there
for sure
for the Wildcats too, trying to do that, and that's not easy, especially if you have a traditionally basketball school or another sport that draws some of those kids away. But I feel like there's a few schools as well that are on their way up. So
for sure, they're well on their way.
Speaking of Chris too, he brought up a great point about the Winkle Blacks. How many brother sister duos are there going to be down there at Ford Field this weekend competing? I mean, there might be. There very well could be, but that's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool story angle there.
It's true.
Yeah, that's good.
Super true.
All right, what's next, Zach?
We got to touch on a little girls basketball. The district start this week. Conference wrapped up last week. Hart was the front runner in the conference. I don't think anybody was too surprised by that. Montague had a great run, though. They honestly did. They lost 2 games, both to Hart in the conference, and they had a battle for their last matchup. So congratulations to Hart on that, and we're heading off districts this week. I think that Hart, we expect Hart, all the district brackets are right here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see them or not.
Yeah, we can see them.
Um,
I wish we could show this. There's a way we can.
Yeah,
We'll set up.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start at the top. In the Oak Ridge district, there's actually a few schools from the conference, so that should be interesting. Oak Ridge, Montague, and Whitehall, and then the usual Fruitport, Spring Lake, Orchard View are in that district. I think Montague has a good shot to win that. I don't know. I know Spring Lake's decent. Scott, you may be able to shed some insight on this, but I don't know how good, how much better they might be. I know they play in a tough conference.
Well, Spring Lake got Montague earlier in the season,
Yep.
but it was like a 1 or 2 point
It was
game.
close,
Went
yeah.
right down the wire, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was there for that one. We were actually up, I think, by 20.
I thought it was big, and then fourth quarter they just came storming back, right?
Yeah, and I will say that Montague's team makeup has changed since then, in the sense that what got us was the press,
Mhm.
and some of the kids have stepped up to help Kendall Osborne. Emma Peterson is a good ball handler, and she wasn't. I don't think she was playing quite as much then as she is now. Like, she was in at crunch time for the Shelby game, which was wild.
Mhm.
On was it on Thursday?
Yeah,
That's
last
Thursday. Yeah.
What a great game that was. That was
Come
fantastic.
back in that one.
Yeah, but Emma was a big part of that at the end. So they are different. I think that will help them with Spring Lake
Well, good. Good. They definitely have a shot.
if they have to beat the winner of the Fruitport Oak Ridge game first. But
Yep.
Yeah. Fruitport any good? They play in the same league as Spring Lake, right?
Yeah, they've been down.
I think they only have one win.
Yeah.
I think I heard.
really?
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, you're right. They still have to win that game. Oak Ridge. I mean, they didn't. I don't want to say they gave Hart a run for their money last week, but like it was fairly close. It was
Like
like
12-point game.
yeah.
Right?
I was kind of surprised to see that. So,
I think Oak Ridge was near tied with us, or maybe even a little ahead at halftime last time we
Mhm.
played them at home, and then we.
they're not horrible, and they're getting better.
Yeah.
So you're right. You can't overlook them. It'll be interesting though. That should be a good district. And I mean another interesting one is Hart. Hart plays at Holton, in that district. Western Michigan Christian's pretty solid. I believe Hart got them earlier in the season.
I think
But
that
n-
was with Jade Hovey still
Correct.
playing, I believe. So different makeup for Hart. Still a great team, but it's going to be a little bit different should those teams collide on
I
Friday.
mean,
Yeah.
how good could Hart have been? Like,
I
I,
know.
mean,
With
they
Jade.
win the conference and lose the best player in the conference and possibly in the area, right? Like, I mean, I got to believe Jade's somewhere in the talk
She's
for
right
Miss
up there. She's
basketball too. It's like, I don't know, like, is she that good? Like,
I don't think she would enter the Miss Basketball discussion, but in terms of the area, she's definitely in that discussion of the top 10 players or
For
whatever.
sure.
All
At
the
least.
regions.
right? Yeah. So
Mm.
that's pretty crazy. Hart. I mean,
Who knows?
more power to Hart for doing.
Mm.
Who knows? A lot of girls have stepped up for Hart though, including her younger sister. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That should be a good district. Those are definitely the two favorited teams. And that Shelby's playing good too though. Never know. Ravenna's in a kind of a weird district off at Morley Stanwood. And I'm guessing Kent City's the favorite to win that one.
Yeah, they're the overwhelming favorite in that one.
Yep.
How far away is Morley Stanwood?
1.5, 1:45, longer.
1 hour and 10 minutes.
He knows. How do you
You
know that?
know, Mark.
I feel like it's that like
That's where we transferred from
Really?
2 years ago. Yeah,
No
our
kidding.
kids went to Morley Stanwood.
That's not bad.
It's actually like mileage wise not that far away, but it's hard to get to, right?
It's just
kind of like
M-
Newaygo and,
M20.
like, yeah,
Yeah, there's no easy way.
that's
No.
the tough part. Yeah.
One of those.
Morley's got a good sports tradition, though.
They're actually celebrating this weekend. I think in 2007, I believe they won the girls volleyball state championship,
Mhm.
and in 2011 and 12, the same year, they won volleyball and girls basketball,
Wow.
Yeah,
and that was with
Hunty.
Hunty. Yep, Alexis Hunty.
There goes
That's her
Scott
maiden
again.
name. And yeah, they that was a pretty special year to have both volleyball and girls basketball
I think
in the same
her
year.
dad was the former AD, Clark
Yes,
/ football coach.
yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This guy.
Yeah. Even
I can,
like,
pull
yeah.
I can pull that stuff out of.
243.
You weren't even here yet. Weren't you in
On the
Kalamazoo
floor.
at that time?
Funny, and then we get in these leads meetings, and Brent asks me a question, and I talk in circles trying to answer it.
Yeah, that is true, Scott. So, what do we got last, Zach?
And then this is the last district with a conference team in it. at Mason County Central. They're the only conference team in this district, and I really couldn't tell you who's the favorite to win that. I'm sure Scott has some kind of insight.
I really don't know.
Oh, come on, Scott.
There's no way.
One time we're relying on you, and you
Is there any?
let you down.
holy moly.
Is there any teams that are usually pretty good that you see in there?
That's a tough one. I mean, I don't know much about McBain. That's
Yeah, neither do I.
actually a pretty good
That wants to
sports
say no.
school, too.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say no, but
He does.
Shit all around
Yeah.
it.
Mason County Central's got a shot.
For sure.
They're actually a pretty solid team.
They're not horrible. Yeah,
No.
we have to remember they play in the girls' conference. Pretty solid. They really are. The MCC is not horrible. So who knows? We'll keep an eye on those. Keep an eye on those.
Right.
All right, and then we got to talk about boys basketball districts since those brackets were released yesterday. We found out that again the schools will match up in the same way, at least the districts. So we found out that Montague, Whitehall, Spring Lake, Orchard View, Oak Ridge are all going to be in that same district. We found out that is it Whitehall that got the number 1 seed, and
Whitehall's one, Oak Ridge is 2.
and Oak Ridge got the 2. So
That's according to the bracket. That's how it looks to me.
Yeah.
and
Much to my dismay.
yeah,
The whole thing. Well, the whole thing is kind of weird right now. When Montague plays Fruitport Thursday, and then we're going to get them again next week for the first round. We've played Whitehall twice. We've played Oak Ridge twice. We beat Oak Ridge twice.
Mhm.
Like it's
It's a little. They're not a powerhouse, but they can be a little sneaky. They're not terrible.
yeah.
I looked at some of their scores because I'm that dad. And they lost to Spring Lake by 12 once, which I didn't think was much. They played, I think, West Catholic pretty decent
Yeah.
once.
they play in a tough league. That's
It is.
everybody's
It is.
talk.
It is.
Does that mean
Yeah.
you're nervous, Mark?
Well, we talked about it last night at our house. And I initially was a little nervous, but then I said, if Spring Lake's beat them twice, if we want to win districts, we're going to have to beat someone like Spring Lake or Whitehall.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So what does it matter? If you can't beat Fruitport, then you weren't going to win districts anyways.
Mhm.
I will say too, and I've said this going into the season. I thought Oak Ridge and Montague, those would have been my 2 front runners for winning the league title. Whitehall, I didn't know about because I didn't know about Camden and what his impact would be. But right now, if you look at it,
Cam's all right.
he's okay.
He's doing okay.
But right now, I would say Oak Ridge and Montague are playing as well as anybody in the league.
Yeah,
I
I would
agree.
agree. I would agree with that. What's Montague lost 1 in the last 10 or 11, something like that?
Yeah, no, they're on a roll, and obviously Oak
That
Ridge
was
is too.
Yeah, and but Oak Ridge has beat some good teams here down the stretch.
Dude, they've beat everybody at the top of the conference in the last few weeks.
So, Zach, how many did Weaver have?
Except for Montague.
Yeah.
Montague swept.
Dude,
them.
I'm not. That argument, that conversation's over. Weaver's legit. I'm not.
Oak Ridge did not get Montague. Montague swept Oak Ridge. That was the one.
Yeah.
When was that? When did they play?
I think that was the last loss for Oak Ridge.
It was.
In
Yeah.
fact.
When was that?
Yeah, was there one loss?
What, 3 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah,
Maybe
it
3
wasn't
weeks
that
ago.
long ago.
It was right before they started their hot streak, right?
Yep, it is.
They kicked it off with Urbana. They beat Whitehall. They beat North Muskegon.
I think they got Shelby the week before. Or
They've won
game
6
before,
straight
so-
now.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
6 in a row now.
Yeah,
Yeah, they had one good win before us.
yeah.
And then they lost to us, and then they haven't lost since.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think with us, with Oak Ridge, and it might have even been that way last year too, it might be more of a matchup thing,
Yep.
It is. Matchups are huge.
including, my son with Ethan Josa.
Yeah.
no, and those
That,
3.
that was interesting. That was really interesting last year. You and I called the second game
Yeah, we did.
when they were trying to play off, and that didn't work. And
Yeah.
it's a matchup thing with them. And Weaver scored 0 points the first time we played them. 0.
Mhm.
Which is
No, I know.
Which is not going to happen.
I could not believe
Which
that
he's got a
happened.
string of 20 plus going.
Yeah.
I think.
And Mark and I actually talked to Tracy Rule before the Montague Oak Ridge
The
game.
second
Tracy
one.
was talking about the fact that Garrett had been hurt.
Yeah.
Like he had not been like completely healthy for quite a few games. I think
in
is what he was
multiple
saying.
areas.
Yeah. So, I don't think this next time around Montague's going to get a 0-point performance out of Weaver. I'd be surprised if he's not in the 15 to 25 range.
Yeah. I mean, he's been there, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where he's been living, and he's so smart, and they've been getting some contribution from Delora. I don't know that
I talked
they're
to
as good
him
as
after the
anybody.
game. That was the game of the week last Friday. Was Oak Ridge over North Muskegon, and their big 3 seniors, I call them, with Josa, Weaver, and Delora. They've been playing so well lately, and I'm actually doing my profile of the week on Weaver and Josa, and Funny thing that Tracy Earl was telling me after the game, this obviously wouldn't make the story, so it's a good spot to discuss it here. They didn't even want to come to the studio here for the interview. They're so
They're afraid of
shy.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
It's so intimidating.
I don't blame them. No, they didn't even want to get in the car and come up here. Tracy made them. He's like, look, this is good for you guys. This is good for the school. This is good for the program. You need to go.
That's funny.
And Joseph was going to practice. He was in his practice. I'm not going. Then all of a sudden he changed his mind, decided to get in the car.
Well, I'm glad they came. I do agree with Mark. I think the matchup's a little. We're a matchup problem for them. I think Isaiah bothers Josa, and when you bother Josa, it makes everything else a little bit harder. I don't know a lot of teams in our conference that have kind of the length to do that, and we've got great guards too. I mean, Whitehall has great guards, but they don't really have anybody to bother Josa.
Yeah, they don't have a big man.
Not like that.
Same thing with Ravenna. Same thing with a couple other little schools. So it'll be interesting. Isaiah's been playing great too. So if we keep that up, then we're good.
Should be an interesting district.
Weaver scares me. Like a guy can get rolling.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. He's going to be a difference maker for them.
And Spring Lake's always a tough out when you got Bill Core coaching them, and they're just always so solid.
The George kid's really good.
We haven't even given Whitehall any credit either. I mean, they're not an easy out. I mean, like all the way across the board, athletic. Cam's playing great, and this is a district that I think I want to go to more games than just Montague.
That's a tough district.
It's going to
be. I'll be there every night probably.
Yeah.
The thing about Whitehall for me, because everybody says Cam. Spring Lake beat them bad the first game of the year, and then they had a few other rough games there, Ravenna and a couple other ones. But they started playing better before Cam came back. I thought they started winning a couple games and they started finding their roles, and then they added Cam. So I think you guys have talked about it quite a bit, or I've heard other people talk about it. People have accepted their roles on that team.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
And so even before Cam, they started to get better, and then you added Cam. So I've talked to some Spring Lake people, and I think they think Whitehall's not
the same team.
Well, I think they just know what they know. They know when they played them the first time.
Yeah.
But
I can see them.
Watch out.
Trust me, Bill Core's been watching too. That guy
will never say
he's
that.
a smart guy. He won't say it, but he's had a lot of games. He's always asking questions about his teams.
Yeah, and Mark, I agree with you. I mean, Whitehall was getting better. I definitely don't think they go to where they go without Cam. I mean, I think he poses just a nightmare problem, and we've seen the difference one player can make with Hart this year, right? Like, I mean, that was a different team we played last week. They played hard. They played tough. They were well coached, but a single player can be a difference maker, especially in high school at this level, right? So,
for sure.
Well, and he doesn't play like a Hovey necessarily, but he touches the ball as much as Hovey.
Anybody that's going to get me as many offensive and defensive rebounds as Cam does is like that, and he puts the ball in the basket around the rim too. So like, yeah, you're right. He doesn't create quite like that, but they don't need that either.
But he touches it though, is my point. Just like Hovey does. I mean, the offense kind of goes through them, and I've even seen Cam as a freshman kind of quarterbacking everybody else out on the court.
Yep.
Amazing for a freshman.
Yeah, he's talented.
And that's something I think what Christian brought up last week too. With you have a senior point guard like Red. If you understand your role and you play your role and know that this freshman and don't get maybe, any bitter feelings or anything, you're like, yeah, this kid's really good. Let him do his thing and I'll do my thing.
Yeah, I think they like and respect Cam. I think he's earned that.
He works hard.
He sure does.
Yeah, they've bought in.
They beat Ludington last week, and I don't want to talk about the game a ton. There was a few a few stipulations, if you will. Ludington's a really good kid, was coming off of 2 weeks sitting. He had a little injury, and Ludington's a really good basketball team. I was shocked that Whitehall pulled that victory out. But more than anything, I got to see Peyton Lacombe, who's Ludington's real good kid. And I kind of want to touch on, the best basketball players in the area real quick. We talk a lot about the conference, but I don't know who the best player in the Muskegon area is.
That's always a weird conversation because
it is.
That's a weird one. Like I think you almost have to always default to some of the bigger schools, because we talked a little bit about this when we had our discussions about the 5 best in the West Michigan Conference or all conference kids. I mean, the 3rd best player on Muskegon or Grand Haven or Reese Puffer could just one of those teams could be better than every kid in our conference.
Absolutely.
And you might not be able to see it quite the way that when they're playing the competition they are. So that's a tough one, man.
Isn't that hard? Because we all like basketball and watch enough. I know that we watch clips and such from other conferences from other areas, and I saw Ambrose play from Puffer earlier this year. I was super impressed with him, and I got to see Lacombe last week. Those kids are just different level. And I know Grand Haven has a kid that's really good, and Muskegon has a kid that's really good.
Grand Haven's got Harrison Sorrell. He's about a 6'5", 6'6" point guard. They've got Nick Stump.
Imagine
Nick Stump, who I think committed to Hope, and they've got Bashir Neely. So they got a really good threesome there, and they've got also Owen Worthington, a big kid. He's like 6'3", 6'4". He's going to be a D2 football player, I believe. And then, Muskegon's got the great backcourt of Briggs, Jordan Briggs, and Sid Knorr, and then they've got Ethan Hill, who's committed to Saginaw Valley, I think.
Yeah.
And they've also got Mo Sane Jr., who I think just committed to Northwood.
Yep.
So
be interesting to see
just
some of those
deep,
teams
too.
match up.
But it's really hard to rate those. It's just like I read something about I can't remember. Gary Payton saying how much better he was than Bob Cousy, and it's different eras comparing that. But when you're talking about skill in the area, when you talk about like Jordan Briggs, he's playing with the front court of Hill and T.J. Davis.
Yeah.
And and the other guard is Sane, and he's 6'4", 6'5" himself.
Yeah.
So then you compare them because they just beat Reese Puffer bad.
And Sane didn't even play.
Absolutely
He didn't
smoked
dress that game.
So Ambrose is that good, right?
Yep.
But when you play someone that has all of those, so how do you rank Ambrose with them? You say, well, he just got killed by Muskegon, but with all the players that Muskegon the Muskegon has.
And I'll bring this up now. It's a little Brent would be proud of me because the healthy conflict piece, but. When I was working at M Live, we'd put together dream teams, and that was always tough because how do you compare kids from different schools? Yeah. You're playing similar opponents, maybe in some ways, like Muskegon and Reese Puffer are playing similar opponents, but if kids have very identical or close stats, how do you pick one over the other? And, there's some coaches that were upset that we made a decision to go with one kid over another on first team.
Yeah. Well, from my experience, like all I can take is my experience, right? And so my first year at MCC, Jared, I played ball with Jared Bays. He averaged 24, 25 points a game in our conference. Derek Westerlin, one of the better shooters that I've seen, went to Mona Shores, right? Like when we got to MCC, there was some players there that had transferred in, Greg Norman from Muskegon, Mark Reed from Holland, only the very best. Jeremy Holmes was on that team, and Jason Kennedy from Shelby, Mason County and Shelby, two of probably the best players in the West. I mean, they're all time kind of best players, and it was hard for some of those other guys to even crack the lineup to play. And they all graduated at the same time. They were all the best players in the area, but when you really saw it, it was just a completely different.
Yeah, it is.
Does that make sense?
For sure.
It goes back to what we talked about with wrestling. There are levels.
Yeah.
It's just there's next level stuff that you see.
Yeah, we see that a lot with Isaiah with AAU until last year, because there's different levels of AAU, but he plays high level until last year when he hurt his knee. But you think that these teams are really good and it's kind of amazing, and then you go to another tournament and it's unbelievable how much more it gets ratcheted up. It's amazing. So yeah, it's hard to do. You would really have to look at. I would have to really look at their athleticism. So someone like Parker Hovey was playing so good. He would never get away with what he's doing playing against Muskegon, and his teammates wouldn't help him enough. So he would not look the way he does now.
Well, I think it's all physical at that point.
That's what I mean.
6'4" is tall in our conference, and if you can handle the ball a little bit, you don't have to be fast or jump really high or do any of that stuff. Like you said, the 6'4" guys at Muskegon or at Grand Haven, they're all over the place.
They're a dime a dozen.
They're fast and they jump, and so the type of defense you're drawing at that level is just going to be the next level type stuff. And I'm not saying he couldn't get time on the floor. I'm just saying, a kid like that's not going to be, I think, the same skill level. Does that
Right.
make sense?
I'm not saying he wouldn't get time on the floor either. We're talking best basketball players.
Yeah,
Right.
So someone like that. So you would have to really look at in our conference. Although I say our conference is better than what it's been in a long time. I know everybody talks about how competitive it is, but you have like a Cam, Joseph Hayes,
Yep.
31 against us last time, and it's amazing how cool he is. Now he might not have the athleticism, so maybe that's where it's hard to judge our conference.
It is, yeah. For
But,
sure.
but to put it in perspective too, and you touched on it a little bit, is that with the AU thing, you realize what's out there once you get out there and see some other teams. Like in Muskegon, there's some really good players, but I don't see any like surefire Division I kids right now.
No.
I mean, kids who potentially could make it to Division I level, but you got to be so good to play D1 anything.
Yeah, you sure do.
No, I agree with you. I think that's just, I look around our conference and there's not a lot of kids that physically could. I mean, Owen wouldn't play at a bigger school, right? Like, I mean, my son Owen, it's just, he's too small, and he could be as talented as he wanted to be. There's only so many Earl Boykins and Spud Webbs, right? Like it takes an unbelievable athlete at that point. So
for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
So who are what are you're asking the question, who are the best
I just
players in the area?
obviously we've all seen a game here or there that maybe is out of conference, or we've watched some highlights or so on, and just who kind of pops to the top of your head. I feel like I got a little glimpse of that with Ludington last week, because I mean, I'm being honest, Peyton LaComb's probably one of the best basketball players I've seen all year. Just his ability to jump and how quick he is for being how big he is. He's like 6'7" or something, and he moves like as good as anybody I've seen. So he's a D2 kid. He's going to Michigan Tech. I haven't seen a ton of that this year, and it kind of reminded me of like what we just talked about. Hey, there is some seriously good competition outside of the West Michigan Conference.
For sure.
Just anybody that kind of popped into your head. So
is he a Muskegon area, Ludington?
Ludington, I mean, technically right now, yeah. Yeah, that's as far north as
we go, kind of.
Yep.
This is harder discussion than top 5 or starting 5.
For sure.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that.
And I saw Lacombe last year. Saw him a little bit last week against Whitehall. Obviously not healthy yet, but he's very good last year. Briggs again. I'll bring him up. I'll bring up Ambrose. Ambrose is a sophomore. He's 6'7". He gets after it. He picked up 3 fouls in like the first 4.5 minutes against Muskegon, and they brought him back in. Kind of gambled with it a little bit late in the first half, but yeah, he's really good, really skilled. And again, those Grand Haven kids I mentioned, and then of course in the West Michigan Conference, you got Camden, and I'm trying to think anyone else really around the area that would jump.
I mean, you got numbers in the West Michigan Conference.
Right.
I just don't know that you've I mean, I, as much as I love Joseph Hayes, I think the kid plays hard. I think he gets his points. He's quiet, good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm kind of that kind of guy that I hope that I would be wrong. But you get a bigger guard on him that really can D up. I mean, I think he would struggle.
Yeah, it's different.
I think
it's different.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I would start with Jordan Briggs.
Yeah.
I would start with him myself. I think what will really be interesting, and I know I'm going to jump just a little sidebar, in 2 years, you have Schillinger from Ludington.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You have Ambrose. Then you have Whitaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ambrose and Whitaker
as well.
Real good.
I know the Guy family really close.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised if Mackay Guy is in that conversation in 2 years.
And he's a pest on defense too.
He's a pest now, but he can play offense too. As I said, he knows his role.
He's another one of those really good role players for them.
And then if Isaiah plays like he has the second half of this season and improves on that, I mean, now you're talking about some. I mean, he has a big time
plug.
Yeah.
He's already talked about Owen 4 times. I haven't thought I have. No, just kidding. But he has. I mean, he has to do.
All right, I can't let that one slide. What did I say about Owen?
Come on.
You just said that he could play with all these guys.
I did not.
Yep,
I said
5'6".
You put him in a different conference. I did not.
But seriously, in 2 years, they're some really athletic, dunking, quick guys and all that. But anyways, back to this.
I do agree with your statement on Isaiah too. In a couple of years, I think
for sure
he keeps on the trend that he's on.
Yep. And Puffer's
Physically,
kids
it's
are in the
weird.
same conversation. They're just young.
You know, in the league though too, I mean, there are a lot of really good players, really solid players. You know, again, we talk about Weaver and Jose again. I just don't put them in that category
Yeah,
of like a Briggs. I
totally
just don't
agree.
think
No.
you can.
No, it's different.
Camden, I think, is closer to that area, obviously, just because of the special things he can do, especially at such a young age.
I think he'd have to play a different way at
Yeah.
a bigger school like that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's inside as much, but I still think he can make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, Cam's playing in the middle of a 2-3 zone often,
Mm-hmm.
and on offense, a lot of it's. I still think you'll somehow get some putbacks because he is.
will.
Just,
You know,
he
he
is
will.
just
He's very active.
He's a past on the board.
and gritty.
yeah.
He's just gritty,
And
but
smart.
he would have to be a 2 or something, right?
Yeah, I'm
Brent?
Yeah.
thinking a 2 or a 3.
He wouldn't play the
And like Christian said last week, that's where he'll have to keep developing that perimeter game
Mhm.
as he goes. Because I think
God
he could
help
be a
us if he
prospect.
starts shooting the 3 really well.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I think he's going to at some point, you know.
If he does that, then there's a kid who maybe you're looking at a potential Division I kid. If
I can see that.
he's got to keep progressing.
And you don't know if he gets taller or if he stays the same size.
Right. He still looks so young, you know. I think he's got some growing to do.
There's a long ways to go on it though. So.
Yeah, that'll be
knows?
interesting.
Who knows?
What's
Uh,
next?
Well, with that being said, all the basketball talk to kind of wrap it up. Do we have any?
Oh my god!
Do you think anybody can win a regional? You know, we talk about how, you know, every time we go to state wrestling or we go to AAU, you know, a national tournament, you see all these teams that are a heck of a lot better than what we're seeing on a daily basis. You know, do any of these teams have the ability to kind of make it out of the region?
I don't think Muskegon's lost to anyone in the area.
No,
I think they have 2 losses.
they lost to Ferndale.
Right, and they're in Division 2.
Right, and to who else?
Grand, no, they beat Grand.
They beat
Blanc.
Grand Blanc in double overtime.
Yeah, I don't think they've
They beat
lost.
Benton Harbor
Yep.
too, didn't they?
They beat.
They
Yeah,
beat Ben Hartford bad.
So who would they see in the region? Somebody from Grand Rapids.
Usually it's like one of the Grand Rapids schools, Hudsonville, whoever, Rockford, one of those type schools. The game that everyone's kind of pointing to right now is Grand Haven Muskegon, if that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'd be in the district.
And they haven't played each other yet, have they?
No.
Is that this week? I thought it was like last.
That would be
regular
next week if they meet each other.
Oh, so they're not playing in the regular season.
No.
Yeah, I mean, just to focus on our conference, a region gets tough. I mean,
Yeah,
like it,
I don't think
it
so.
re-
Because look where you're going. You're going to have to face the likes of Grand Rapids Catholic,
Yeah,
Unity Christian.
yeah,
That's where this used to be Class B Division II district feeds into the Grand Rapids Regional,
yeah,
and that's who you're facing. Are those teams, which are those as good as any in the state, usually
yeah.
in that division.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Like the last regional from our conference that I watched was Shelby and Nuevo, and that Shelby team back then was special. I mean, like all the way across the board special. Like, and they didn't win the region. You
No,
know
I
what
know.
mean, like so it's. I mean, if there's some teams that I think shooters got a chance, is what I would say. Like so, I mean, honestly, I could see a team that just went on fire. And and again, I'm not trying to be a homer. If Montague shoots the ball well, they're tough, right? But they would have to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. Same thing with Whitehall. I think Whitehall would have to get on fire. And Whitehall, I don't think has to be quite as on fire as Montague would. But their shooters would have to knock down shots. And, I don't know. I just don't see.
And last year, North
I
Muskegon,
don't see it.
North Muskegon was kind of a middle of the road team last year, and they caught fire, got to the regional finals, but then
Yeah, it
you're
catches
running
up
into
to
like
yeah,
a Covenant
yeah.
Christian or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's
They're
more
really
realistic
good.
in my mind than one of these D2
Yeah, I would
schools
agree.
from.
It is. Like
Good
maybe
one.
them or Urbana catches fire in Division
Yeah,
3 and
yeah.
maybe gets to the regional then. But again, it depends on
Do
who
they
you're
win
running
it?
into.
Because
I don't know if they can win it though.
Yeah, his next question was, do they win the regional?
Yeah, does anybody have a shot? I think maybe the Hart girls are probably the closest. North Muskegon boys,
See Hart.
just because of their, some of it's because of what division they're playing in too.
Mark, what do you think?
I say Muskegon.
Muskegon,
I think for the district that Montague and Whitehall are in, like Spring Lake has an under 500 record, and it's pretty much where they were at last year, and they still won districts because of how difficult their
Yeah,
conference is.
Mhm.
And then you go to their conference, and really none of them can beat Grand Rapids Catholic.
Right.
And they were in that region last year. I don't know if they
Yeah.
are this year.
I'm sure they will be.
But-
By
so-
the way, Coopersville in that league is in Division 1 this year. They're in Muskegon's district.
That's what a
I know that,
horrible
Coopersville.
jump. Yeah.
And I think, I think that's just when you talk about divisions for basketball, Montague being Division II is almost. I just can't even really hardly believe it when you look at some of those schools that have 800.
That's
Right
that's
on
a,
the high
that's a
end.
whole nother topic for a podcast.
That's-
I mean, but Whitehall has 200 more students than us,
Yeah,
right?
No, I completely agree with
But
you.
we're equal. We're supposed to be equal on.
And Oak Ridge is close to Whitehall in enrollment, right? They're pretty close.
I think Whitehall or Oak Ridge passed
They're
Whitehall in the last
bigger.
year.
I think yeah.
Yeah,
and
they've
then-
been close.
And Spring Lake's bigger than both of them. I think
Mhm.
they're almost like 800.
So next year will be really interesting.
You're right, though.
I mean, Fremont is Whitehall size.
I mean, there's a lot of arguments for basketball to make it more like football. Basically, having more divisions and
Spreading it
splitting them
up.
up a little bit. And I'm a fan of that. I mean, honestly, I do think that there's, not that a school the size of Montague can't go win that district, but it would take just an unbelievably special team. I mean, in my mind,
I agree.
especially to go past districts, right? Like that it's tough. And you're pulling from you need the 11 best kids. It's not generally the top 1 or 2 kids that are different, right? Like your top 1 or 2 are going to be as good as Spring Lake's top 1 or 2. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 where they don't have a drop off. The guys coming in off the bench would start at any other school. You know what I mean? Like that's
Right.
where it gets tough, right? And you look at Whitehall right now. One of the things Christian's got going for him is you look across their program and they're just piling in athletes, right? You look at Monty. Montague's good, but we got 3 sophomores up,
Mhm.
right? 3 good sophomores, but it's tough. It's same thing with football. I mean, but football we have a different division, right?
It's different
It,
setup.
it was interesting after the Montague Whitehall football game that the Whitehall coach, who was very gracious, said, we know that Montague still has all their goals in front of them because now we're going to play same size schools.
Yeah.
And we ended up still winning districts
Yeah.
Mhm.
on a team that was down from them. I mean, we lost a all state
Couple.
Yeah.
player of the year, Drew Collins,
Yeah.
for Division 5-6.
Mm-hmm.
And Walker Martin going to Grand Valley, and just a big line.
Yeah.
And we still won districts because once we were done playing those guys,
Yeah, you're punching at your own weight.
and then we went. Yeah, you said that a couple times at the time. Yeah.
You are, and again, I can use more cliches like battle tested, but it is true. I mean,
Yeah.
it does prepare you, especially those smaller schools. Whitehall's a little different deal because they're jumping up. They're in Division 4, and again,
Every division has their own beasts,
but you're running into when you're at Whitehall and you're in West Michigan. Now, if you get sent north, you might have a shot to make a good run. But if you're sent to Grand Rapids, again, you're running into
you start getting into
Grand Rapids Catholic.
Grand Rapids Catholic is Division 5 even now, which is crazy.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what kind of schools are those?
Yeah.
So
Sorry, not to kick off the football talk again.
well, we somehow got onto football, but it's because of your good point. Really, was that maybe basketball should go to the same format.
yeah,
I agree with that.
I believe that for a long time.
I think it's structured based on how many teams. I don't know exactly but I think that plays into it. And I think there's a lot more football teams than there is.
So in track, I think Montague's Division 3.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, golf as well.
Golf
Weird.
is 4, I think.
Yeah, I think it
Mhm.
depends, but yeah,
I've heard Osborne talking about that push for
Yeah,
8
Dave's-
divisions in basketball.
Mhm.
Dave's a big proponent of that.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah. So all right, what's the next topic?
Interesting. I think we got time to cover one more topic, and I want to talk about overcoaching a little bit, or just the theme of overcoaching.
Ooh,
I think this is an interesting one because, I've kind of thought about it because of how many coaches I've heard recently talking about watching film and requiring their kids to watch film, or having Sunday practices, or so on and so forth. And I can only help but apply it to realistic situations where a kid might have a funny looking shot, but it goes in all the time. And
Yeah.
coaches spend this. It's just an example. Coaches spend all this time trying to fix their shot to look correct, and in turn, you do more damage than you do good.
the Jim Furyk golf swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Exactly.
I get it.
Yep. And I just want to know what you guys' thought is on this. I know Brent has an
You're
opinion.
stepping in it with me, man. Like, I think for me it goes back to my fundamental view on why teams win, and I think that especially at the level we're talking about, West Michigan Conference, West Michigan kind of, the teams that win are the teams' effort and attitude. I mean, I do think skill comes into that, but like you can do all the X's and O's you want. You can do all that stuff. If kids don't play hard and they're not in it, you so I think the key there for a coach needs to be, how do I create an environment where I get effort and attitude? Once you get effort and attitude, I think it makes the X's and O's and the skills stuff a whole lot easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I do think that like being open to that change and like learning how to do things better is a good thing. Totally reinvent. I mean, you look at Larry Bird. He did not have a traditional jump shot, right?
There's a lot of examples.
Yeah. But he shot and 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 he shot. And again, effort and attitude. If the kid with the janky jumper puts that much of effort and has that attitude, he's probably going to be successful, regardless of what the mechanics look like.
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot more what seems like robotic play, and I will say this is more on like a team level, like a team overview.
Right.
But kids are so worried about their offense or where they're supposed to be in the defense or wherever that they forget that they're like basketball players. Like like a lot of it's instinct, and I just feel like I've been seeing that more and more, and I think there's a common a common ongoing philosophy where coaches are doing more and more, kids are required to do more and more, but in that process they may lose their natural instinct or their natural ability to kind of play the game that they're probably good at,
to begin
independently. Yeah, to begin with.
I mean, I think this goes back to our year-long sports conversation.
It kind of does,
so a little bit, but I'm gonna be quiet and let these other guys weigh
Yeah,
in.
Scott, what do you think about this? Mark, what do you think about this?
Yeah, one thing I think of is if you're talking about changing someone's form, it makes me think of what we're doing here at CatchMark with building things the right way so that you can sustain and grow from it. And maybe you guys might think that's an apples to oranges thing, but that's what I think of as, I understand if you got a kid who's effective doing it the way he's doing it, but is it a long-term sustainable thing that he's doing? And why would the coach change it if it was long-term and sustainable? So that's what I think of. I don't know if that's way off.
I think
that's way out of the realm of what you guys are even thinking.
I think I used the quote at our 7th, 8th grade practice last night. The enemy of best is good. And so there is a piece to that, right? Like I think I heard you talk a while back, Zach, about a baseball swing, and like, yeah, you can hit a 60-mile-an-hour pitch with that swing and but when somebody starts throwing 75, it's not going to work. And so I think there's a piece to that. I don't think you can lose that. The kid that's going to get better, though, effort and attitude. I mean, that's really the kid that's going to soak it in and change and be coachable and be able to do that is the kid that has the right. And I think that goes back to what we do here too, Scott, right? Like finding those people that are willing to work on themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, first of all, for the 7th and 8th grade team that Brent mentioned, we're having a problem with undercoaching. So,
well, you get what you pay for, buddy. So
I waited 2 minutes to say that. But when it comes to I think with high school, first of all, you mentioned the Sunday practices.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with Sunday practices because you have a game on Tuesday, and Monday you don't want to run them into the ground.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying that it is overcoaching. I'm just asking.
So then when do you practice? The thing that I see a little bit of when you end up having to fit a square peg in a round hole is because of, like, because I watch my son all the time. In AAU, he runs the court. He plays up top. He runs the court. He's free flowing because that's the way AAU basketball is anyways. But then you get into high school and all these zone defenses and things like that. You can't do that. And and in our conference, he's 6'7".
Yeah, they're gonna pack it in.
He has to post. That's not his forte. Although I think he's getting better at it.
Pretty good at
it. This year's way better than last year.
Yeah.
And then the same thing. I think Christian touched on it last week with Cam. He's doing things that I don't think that he's used to playing in the middle of a 2-3 defense.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Defense, things like that. So sometimes you have to force kids to do different things, I think. But as far as their form, and I wouldn't change if it works, just Jim Furyk is a really good example.
Yeah.
Just
It is, yeah.
be his golf swing for something. And he's won a major, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, DeChambeau, a good example.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's like I said,
It's
there's a
not a
lot of
consistent-
examples out there.
Bill Cartwright.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but again,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's another one.
and there could be people that would argue that Cartwright could have been better. The Furyk could have been better. All I'm saying is that for me, it's effort and attitude. If you, even if it's goofy and it doesn't look right, if you put the time in, and again, Larry Bird's like the perfect example of that, right? Like you put that time in, you're going to make it work. And the kids that don't put the time in are not going to, even if they have the mechanics right, they're not going to make it work. And that's actually, I had that talk with our kids last night, just about like, hey, you got to be coachable. You got to be able to. But again, I think it comes back to a lot of, are they allowed to make mistakes too? You know, when you talk about the roboticness, I don't know that it's over coaching as much as it is kind of a reaction, maybe overreaction to mistakes. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, so an example of that would be you don't want mistake after mistake after mistake, and you have to coach these kids up, but creating an environment where it's okay to be yourself and to make a couple mistakes.
Right.
You know, does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, the bottom line is what I'm drawing from everybody's, input is that there's a fine line.
Yeah,
There really is. Like you want to, in the work example that you used here, we want to create a process and encourage change and, follow a culture that kind, we want to do all those things, but you also don't want to, erase someone's creativity.
Yeah, you don't want to
creativity
stifle
or
that
individualness,
completely either. Yeah.
for sure.
The point that Brent made, it even depends on the player, because some
Absolutely.
of, like, even just on the Montague team, because Brent and I know the Montague team.
Yeah.
I mean, our kids are on the team. There's some kids that are very like cerebral players, and they already know what they did.
Yeah.
You don't have to pull them off, and you can at halftime or at the end of the game or even in practice, but they really already know. So you're almost at that point, you're almost scolding that kid, I guess I would say, in a sense. But there's other players, even on the Montague team, that really need that.
Yeah.
They don't know that they did that wrong. So
Well, it was interesting because it was that talk we had with Coach Zulik on his way out from his profile of the week, and Rick kind of said it's all about roles and putting people in the right spot to do. And I think that goes back to what you're saying, Mark, which is you got to know each individual kid and
sure do.
put them in those positions and get them to accept that. I think for me, that's one of the hardest things about coaching now versus coaching maybe when we were kids, is that how parents out there take this the right way. Everybody now thinks that they're supposed to be like the guy. They're all Steph Curry. They're all James Harden. They're all KD, right?
Mhm.
And that's just not realistic. It's not. We need rebounders. One thing I loved about Jeremiah on Saturday, was he went in the game and I said, I need you to play hard and I need you to rebound. And he owned it. That's what he went out and did. And he didn't try to do more than he should. One of the reasons I like Brassfield and Montague too. Like that's what he does.
Mhm.
Like he's not trying to do anything crazy. You know what I mean? And that's situational too, right? So, and then you got those players that you do have to open it up for them, and you have to be like, go ahead and make mistakes. Go ahead and try some of this stuff. And sometimes they're going to do amazing things.
Yeah.
So I see that right in my house.
Yeah.
Isaiah is the one that even Brent's son spent the night at our house after the game Friday night, and we rewatched the game because I'm that dad. And Owen kept saying, you need to shoot more, you need to shoot more, you need to shoot more. You will never have to tell Jeremiah that.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
And at the same time, Jeremiah is the one that you probably do have to pull off the court, and you've done that.
Yeah.
And said, I'm going to put you right back in, but this is what I need you to do, or this is what you can't do this. Isaiah is different. Those two, and just in my own household, I see the difference in the two different types of players.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you have to take the approach based on the kid, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Zach, you've coached for a while too.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball and some other stuff. And I mean, have you ever hit a kid that you're just, I mean, well, I was actually reading an article the other day, and this kind of goes wrong. Is there such a thing as an uncoachable player? And there
Yeah.
was some really a lot of banter going back and forth where people were like, well, if you can't get to them, then you're the problem, right? As a coach. Now, I've had players where I'm like, it's almost impossible to get like the time you get with them. There's not enough time to correct what's actually the root cause of the problem.
Right, exactly.
So like, I don't know that they're completely uncoachable. I just think that in the amount of time we have with them, it's not.
I also think that sometimes it's every time it's a step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you spend the time that you do have, which is limited to begin with, trying to fix a root issue, and then they leave and they have
They're
a
going
travel
right
coach
back
or a
into it,
parent
yeah.
or whoever that's countering everything that you just did or that you were working on. You're preaching team culture and being unselfish and blah blah blah, and then they get in the car and the parent says,
You should have got yours.
right,
Yeah.
and then we're right back to square one kind of thing. So it's a challenge. It's never going to go away, and there's no perfect solution, but you do what you can.
I would also say that it's a balance too, because you can end up spending your entire practice
For
or
sure.
all your time working on that one kid, and then the other kids get neglected in a sense that you're spending too much time with that kid and not yeah, it's a tricky thing, man.
It's hard. That's why coaching's so hard.
Well, and I would, for all those that out there that haven't done it, I think even at any level, you see this stuff and go do it before you start criticizing coaches. That would be my take on it.
Social media is playing a big role now too,
yeah.
because I see kids, even in the league, the Mona Shores League, like that's just school teams playing to get better. And the mannerisms they have, like shooting a
Yeah.
three and backpedaling, and
Yeah.
ball's not even to the rim
yeah.
yet, and then the ball bounces right where you were standing when you shot it, but now the other team has the ball.
Yeah.
Things like they just because in the pros they usually Steph Curry makes that shot.
Well, and I'm gonna,
Right.
yeah, right.
And so they see all that all day long. on
Steph
their
Curry
phone.
shot 5 gazillion threes in his entire life in
Right.
practice, way more in practice than he's ever shot in games. But one of the things that really drives me nuts coaching youth sports is, especially basketball, and it's just fresh on my mind, packing in a 2-3 in 7th and 8th grade basketball, like running zone defenses. Like, you got kids that at their best are going to shoot 20% from the 3-point line, and you're packing it in and playing zone. It just is the goal at that. My goal at that level is always, I want to produce players for the varsity level, and sometimes we're going to lose games because of that. It's just I don't know. Am I stupid to get upset about that?
Well, that promotes bad habits too, though, because every kid wants to shoot a three. So Jeremiah started doing that even in practices a year or two ago. So I notice now that his arm goes, instead of up, it goes out, because he wasn't strong enough last year and the year before to do it, and to have the right motion with your wrist and all that to get that snap. Now I think he is, but now he's got a bad habit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you're going to pack it in, like you said, people are going to start shooting threes.
Yeah, but at that level, they're not good enough 3-point shooters.
That's what I'm saying.
It's almost I don't know.
And bad habits too.
Yeah,
Like-
It's not great. But then it comes back to like what's the goal of the league? What's the goal of each team? Everybody has different missions, different visions for what they want it to be. Who knows?
What's your last one there, Zach?
I got a couple more. We're not going to be able to get to everything.
We got time for one more, I think.
You think so?
What's this one?
I don't
Are
have the
high school
time.
sports taken too seriously?
You there's
got a
one
few
about
on there.
yeah. There's a few. Yep.
Most complex, complicated sport. That stems
Wow.
from a conversation you and
Digging.
I
It does for sure.
All right.
You can pick one. Which one do you want to do?
What you got? What's below there?
Spring sports stuff. We can save that one for sure.
Okay. I don't care. Let's just go in order.
All right.
Our high school sports taken too seriously.
This is kind of on the line that we were just talking about, right?
buddy.
Packing it in. My dad and I had a conversation over the weekend about the mission or the goal of high school sports, and it's funny because we've talked about it here a little bit too.
Yeah, we have.
And about how there's not very many athletic departments that have an overall vision statement. So coaches kind of have different goals or different, different visions for what they want their program to be or what it means to the school.
Right.
or
And
to
how
the
do you
kids.
even hire coaches that fit into your vision if you don't have one?
Exactly.
Right. Like that's
Extremely difficult. So I just wanted to touch on a little bit of that. What is high school sports? What are they designed for? And I think that it's all over the place right now, in general, from different people's perspectives.
I mean, I think initially high school sports were designed to create character in kids,
Right.
To make them better people. I can tell you the lessons that I learned in high school sports were amazing, right? And you don't realize you're learning them at the time, and you kind of do after. But I think it sets them up really well. I think that has changed over the years, and so I don't think that high school athletics should be different now, but I think they are now. Does that make sense? And so, I think it's molded into more of, I don't know how to even explain it. But yeah, I definitely don't think that where they're at now is where they should be. Personally, I don't know. What do you think, Scott? What do you think?
Well, kind of like that.
Mark?
What's the MHSA?
Mission
phrase to
statement?
use again. It's kinda
Oh,
like it's like an extension of the classroom. That's
Right.
what you were alluding to. I think what's kind of taken over, and it's not just recent, but I call it the Derek Jeter phenomenon, where there are a lot of people out there, a lot of parents and others who think their kid's going to be the next Jeter, and they pour so much into all the stuff that sometimes the core values are lost. And it's not everybody. I don't want to stereotype that, but you do see that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think like when I was in school, I think coaching and some of the stuff was a little too harsh, and I think it started to move in the opposite direction for a good change. I think that the pendulum has swung, right? And I'll give you an example of my own kid. Owen has trouble remembering things and being responsible for things. And he had a varsity game where he lost his pullover, his warm-up shirt, right? When I was in school, if I showed up for a practice or for a game and I didn't have a piece of my uniform, I wasn't playing that night, right?
Guess who does that still?
Who?
Rick Zulik.
Yeah.
If you're not wearing
The uniform
or dressed up, if you're not wearing a tie,
And
if you're not
again-
doing this, you're not playing. Or at least
Again,
not playing
I
the
don't
first
know
half.
if it's the whole game that you're not playing for. And again, I'm not criticizing our coach Dave, because I think Dave does a good job. It's more so that overall, I'm using that one example of an overall kind of view. Things like grades. Like I was absolutely astonished. My wife is a varsity coach, and like when I played, it was you better have C's and above, right? Like, and those are the lessons you're teaching. But like now, I feel like you can have a couple F's or right there and still play sports. And like, I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like that's gone the opposite direction, which has impacted like what we're trying to get out of sports. And I know that it was done for the intent was right. I just don't know if we've gotten there.
Yeah. I mean, it's what's important.
Mark-
Is winning important?
Yes.
Mark,
Mark,
yeah, you
been
shed some
quiet.
light on
What's
that.
up, Mark?
Well, my perspective is a little different because, with the two boys we still have in the house, they're adopted.
Mhm.
Isaiah was 5, Jeremiah was 2. And we have felt all along that sports was a really great vehicle for them to belong.
Yep.
They both stand out in their own way. And I don't know, to find some successes, the biggest thing is to be part of a team. They have to learn that people are going to depend on them. And that's one of the hardest things,
Yeah.
I think, for my boys.
Mhm.
They're okay with depending on other people, but it's hard for them to understand necessarily that people are depending on them. And in my house, you do have to have C's or better. We don't even like C's. We prefer B's. But so it has been a vehicle for us to keep your grades up. But
So
we really like.
Would Isaiah not play if he had F's?
That's in our 2 Fs. Well, any Fs, no.
It's tough,
No,
though,
the
isn't
reason
it?
why I'm
Like,
saying that is because I think you can have 1 F
Yeah,
and
you
be
can.
still eligible.
Yeah.
I literally think you
and-
might be able to have two.
Yeah.
I,
think you can
to
have
be
two.
honest with you, I can't even imagine that scenario. But if he had an F, I'm pretty sure that something would have to be done in our
Yeah.
house.
And that's the but that question is the hard part.
Right.
Like you know.
Now nowadays, usually if a kid has an F, from what because school's different. I mean, we could talk about this forever.
Yep.
Is usually because they haven't turned in some work. So I would probably immediately get on them because you can look at their grades right on the computer now. And I would say, you've missed this, this, and this, and I would make them turn it in, and then you wouldn't have an F anymore. But to answer your question, school is first in our house. So now I really like football because I was a military guy,
Yeah.
and football kind of reminds me of the military. So I've got your back, you've got mine. If you don't block your guy, I could actually get hurt, like because someone's going to drill me right in the knee or something like that.
Sure.
And that can happen anyways. But so I think it's great for us, but that's kind of separate from what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I just look at the whole thing. I mean, there's so many life lessons about teamwork and how to.
But what are we like? My question is like, what are we valuing? I don't disagree that there's life lessons in there. I just like you see coaches hired all the time for how.
I think the values are off. If you're asking me, if you're asking
for
me.
sure.
Well, parents are playing a huge.
Oh yeah, no,
They're playing a big part.
that was Scott's point.
Yeah.
Like,
Comes back to I asked a coach that I really respect. This is a couple years ago. I said, "Are kids different now, or what?" And he's like, "No, kids really aren't that much different. The world around them is different, and the expectations or lack thereof from the adults in their life are different."
yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I would totally agree with that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and when Scott, you talk about how we do stuff at CatchMark, I mean, to me, that's any team. Yeah, that's what you got to do, you know. And I don't think across the board high school athletics is about that anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah, so
Not as much anyway.
That was another like deep one, Zach.
He is super deep and complex.
Yeah. He's got many facets.
That's leading into the next question that would put us at 4
Deep
hours for a
thoughts.
podcast.
Well, we're at about 113 right now.
Yeah, we probably should.
So I'm gonna leave it to you, Zachary.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's kill it. Unless you want to add that one.
There's so many good.
I mean, what did we go last week? 124, 125.
Yeah, but we're trying. That's still too long. That's too long.
Yeah.
All right. That might have to do it. I might have to do it. Special thank you to our sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage, North Grove Brewers, Shepherd and Shepherd. We couldn't do what we do without you guys. Appreciate you so much. And that's gonna do it for episode 19. Thank you so much, Mark Atchison, for joining us today. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Peace.